We're gonna be making bone marrow today. This is an incredibly decadent recipe. You get the rich butteriness of the bone marrow that's a perfect accompaniment to steak as a topping or on top of crostinis paired with your steak. So stick around if you're into this kind of thing. So the first thing we're gonna do to prep this bone marrow here is just take a dull knife and we're gonna carve off some of the excess meat that's just on the outside of the bones. And this is really just for aesthetics. You don't have to do this. Just make sure you use a dull knife as you do this. So you can see we got a lot of connective tissue off doing that, and that's not a mandatory step or a necessary one. It just enhances the presentation at the end. But if you're not doing this for presentation purposes, then just go ahead and skip that step. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna need to put these into a salt bath for at least overnight, at least 8 hours. And that's gonna remove the blood from the bone marrow and the bone itself. You can see here, the bone marrow does have a little bit of that blood tinge to it. So what we're gonna do is just take a Pyrex plate like this, fill it up with cold water. Now make sure you leave enough room in your dish just for the displacement once you actually put the bone marrow in. But next we're gonna add a bunch of salt. We're just adding in some kosher salt. Now that we've got that well salted, let's just mix it around here and make sure we get that salt fully dissolved. And now we'll want to submerge our bone marrow. Now make sure you fully submerge the bone marrow. You don't want any part of the bone marrow sticking up above the water's surface. Now we'll just put a lid on this and pop it into the fridge. So we'll check back in the morning, we'll bring them out, and we'll fire up the grill to get those bone marrows cooked. Okay, we've had the bone marrow in the fridge overnight here, and look at this. You can really notice the difference now. There's just been a lot of that blood come out of these bones. So I'll just move them over to a cutting board, get the water out of the way. Now I'll pat these down nice and dry with paper towel. Perfect. Now we'll just transfer these to a little baking sheet. This is gonna be really messy, so we'd highly recommend if you're doing this in the oven or if you're doing in the grill like we are, you're gonna wanna have a cookie sheet underneath this or some type of tray that's got a rim around it. Now I'll just load it up with a little bit of olive oil. Perfect. Just like that. And then we'll go in with a bit of fresh cracked black pepper and sea salt. Now let's take these outside to the grill. So we've got our grill heated to, it's about 400, we're gonna bring it up to 425. We're just gonna put the bone marrow straight on top, just like that. Now we'll let this go for about 20 minutes, and we'll check in periodically to see how it's coming along. Now we're just gonna slice up some baguette here to get ready for that bone marrow. And to slice into the baguette, you'll see we're just using our brisket slicer because it's got a nice serrated edge to it. I hate to have a knife or any tool in the fridge, frankly, that's just good for one single purpose. So here's another good use for your brisket slicer. And then with these sliced up, we're just gonna place them down on a cookie sheet here because we're gonna just toast them off in the oven when the marrow's done and ready to be served up. Perfect, just like that. And now we're just gonna give these a quick brush with some extra virgin olive oil. Now just flip these over once you're done and get the other side as well. Now we're just gonna turn the oven to broil and let that warm up. In the meantime, let's go check in on our bone marrow. So it's been 15 minutes. We're just gonna check in here. Oh, and you can see this is coming along great. So we're gonna take a little bit of rosemary here and just rough it up, just like that. And we're gonna set that along just for a little bit of extra flavor. That's beautiful. It smells incredible. Now we're gonna put this in, top shelf, and these are gonna cook up really fast because we got them on broil. So this is just a few minutes in there. These are ready to turn. and then back into the oven. All right, these have crisped up. Get them out of the oven. All right, we're just gonna check in on the bone marrow. Okay, this is ready to come off. It's been on here for 25 minutes. The rosemary smells incredible. You can tell the fat's rendering in here. Let's get this inside. So let's get these transferred over to our cutting board. Now we're gonna do a little taste test. We're just gonna scoop this out here. Look at that, this fatty, gelatinous texture. And it's gonna pair wonderfully just putting it on one of the crostinis we made. So get the juices out here, spread that across, nice thin layer, just like that. And now time for the taste test. That is absolutely wonderful. Really unique flavor. It's got a rich beefy flavor. I haven't tasted that before. It's not what I was expecting at all, but I would really recommend you try this recipe. Wow, that's phenomenal. Now we're gonna try one other method with one more crostini. Just scoop this out here. Spread that around. And now we're gonna add in just a little bit of chimichurri that we've got left over from another steak video here. So let's have a little taste. That is really, really nice. They're great either way. I'd say this acidity in the chimichurri that's coming from the red wine vinegar is a really nice way to cut down on some of the fattiness here of the bone marrow. But if you want it straight up with a little more beefy taste, it's awesome that way too. So if you like this video, consider subscribing to the channel. There's more of these videos to come. Thanks for tuning in.